Amir had never thought he would find himself on a space station so far away from Earth. The shining halls of the station stretched like long rivers of light, filled with strange languages, glowing signs, and faces that were not human. Every turn was new, and every sound made him feel both small and amazed. Humanity was still fresh to the stars. Most species on the station had only seen humans in reports or on screens, not in person. That made Amir a walking curiosity. His stomach growled as he walked past shops and glowing banners. He had not eaten since the shuttle ride. The food rations from Earth were fine for travel, but the smell coming from one corner of the station pulled him like a magnet. A large archway opened into a cafe alive with color and sound. Hanging lights glowed in soft purple, and the walls shifted slowly like liquid crystal. At every table sat creatures of different shapes. Some had scales, some had long tendrils, others had shining eyes that blinked sideways. They were talking, laughing, eating strange foods that shimmered, steamed, or pulsed with energy. Amir paused at the door, a little nervous. A few heads turned toward him. Whispers floated through the air. A human was here. Rare. Unusual. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. Behind the counter stood an alien waitress. Her skin was pale blue and her eyes were large and bright. She wore a silver band on her head and a flowing uniform that shimmered when she moved. Her name tag displayed her name in both Valari script and standard. It said Sira. She looked up and froze for a moment when she saw Amir. "A human," she whispered, though the word carried across the counter. Amir gave a polite smile. "Hello. I hope this is a place where I can get food." Sira blinked and tried to recover her calm. "Yes, of course. Welcome to the Crystal Bloom Cafe, but I must warn you, our food is not made for humankind. It may be dangerous for your body." Amir laughed softly. "I have heard that before, but I am very hungry. I am willing to try." Other customers turned their heads now. Some leaned closer, their curiosity sharp. Most of them had never seen a human eat alien food. Rumor said human stomachs were either very weak or very strong. Nobody was sure. Sira hesitated. She looked at the menu glowing above the counter, then back at him. "You do not understand. Even some species here cannot handle our cooking. The spices alone can stun a reptilian warrior. For outsiders it could be too much, but Amir only shrugged. Where I come from, our world was not easy. We learned to eat what we had. Plants with poison, animals with strange flesh, water that carried sickness. We learned to survive. Please, bring me something you think is safe enough." "I will take the risk." Sira bit her lip. Finally, she gave a small nod. She waved her hand to the kitchen where a tall Valari chef stood stirring a pot that glowed like liquid fire. The chef frowned, clearly not pleased, but after a long look he prepared a dish. Minutes later, a plate was placed in front of Amir. It held something like glowing noodles mixed with chunks of crystal fruit that gave off a faint steam. The smell was sharp, like burning metal and sweet flowers at once. Several aliens nearby leaned forward in their seats. Sira folded her hands nervously. "This dish is called Lyra Flame. Most outsiders take one bite and need to be carried out. Please, be careful." Amir picked up the utensil. The fork was designed with 3 prongs like a claw, but he managed. He twirled some noodles, lifted them to his mouth, and took a bite. The flavor hit him like a storm. At first it was fire, then ice, then sweetness like fruit, then bitterness like bark. His eyes watered, his tongue burned, his throat felt like sparks. But he chewed, swallowed, and smiled. "Not bad," he said. The cafe fell silent. The only sound was the hum of the crystal walls. Then came a wave of whispers. He swallowed it. "He is still alive." "Impossible." Sira's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her hands shook. She took a step back, almost dropping her tray. Amir calmly took another bite. He chewed, swallowed, and nodded. "Very strong taste. But I like it." A roar of astonishment filled the cafe. Some aliens laughed in disbelief, others stared in awe. Sira pressed her hand against her forehead, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. This human should have collapsed, yet he was asking for more. "Would you like water?" she asked faintly. "No," Amir said cheerfully. "Maybe another plate?" Sira blinked. "Another plate?" Amir nodded. "Yes, please. It is good food." The crowd erupted again, voices rising like a storm. The Valari chef's eyes widened. His pride was touched. If the human thought he could eat, then he would be tested properly. He began preparing a second dish, stronger, hotter, sharper. Meanwhile, Sira gripped the counter, her knees weak. She had never seen anything like this. A human eating what even strong warriors avoided. She had heard humans were strange, but this was something else. She tried to steady her breath, but as Amir lifted the last bite of his first plate and smiled, her vision swam, and then she fainted. The tray slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor as she fell backward. Gasps rose across the cafe. 2 fellow workers rushed to help her. Amir jumped up worried, but one of the Valari workers waved him back. She will be fine. She is only shocked, they said. Amir sat back down, unsure if he should laugh or feel guilty. He had not expected such a reaction. To him it was just food, unusual but not deadly. To them it was like watching someone walk on fire without being burned. He leaned back in his chair, listening to the excited whispers around him. For the first time since arriving at the station, Amir felt that he was not just another traveler. He was a human, and apparently that meant something very special here. The fainted waitress was carried to the back room. The chef placed the second dish on the counter, this one glowing brighter, smoking faintly. All eyes turned back to Amir. The true test was about to begin. But in that moment, Amir only smiled, wiped his mouth with the napkin, and reached for the fork again. Sierra woke up with the soft hum of the cafe walls around her. She opened her eyes and saw 2 co-workers standing over her with worried faces. For a moment she could not remember why she had fainted, but then it rushed back like a storm. The human had eaten the flame dish. Not only eaten it, but asked for more. She sat up quickly, her heart racing. "Is he still here?" she asked. One of her co-workers nodded nervously. "Yes, he is still at the table. He finished the first dish, and now the chef has given him something stronger." "Everyone is watching." Sierra pressed her hands to her forehead. She felt dizzy again, but forced herself to stand. She had to see with her own eyes. She walked back toward the main room, her steps shaky. The cafe was full of noise. Dozens of aliens crowded near Amir's table, some standing on chairs just to get a better view. The air buzzed with disbelief and excitement. At the center of it all sat Amir, calm and smiling with a steaming plate in front of him. The dish glowed brighter than the first, and faint smoke rose in curls that smelled sharp enough to sting the nose. Amir twirled his fork, lifted a bite, and put it in his mouth. The crowd gasped. He chewed, swallowed, and let out a satisfied sigh. "Very interesting flavor," he said. "A little sharp, but not bad." The room exploded with noise. Some shouted in disbelief, some clapped, others shook their heads. Sierra's knees nearly gave out again. She caught herself on the counter and stared. "He is eating it." "He is actually eating it," she whispered. The Valari chef stomped out of the kitchen, his expression dark and confused. He looked at Amir like a puzzle he could not solve. This was not possible. No outsider should be able to eat his strongest dishes. "You, human," the chef called. "Do you not feel pain? Do you not feel fire in your chest?" Amir looked up and shrugged. "I feel it, but it is nothing I cannot handle. Where I come from, food can burn too, just in different ways. We are used to strange tastes and strong spices." The chef narrowed his eyes. "No, this is not spice. This is power drawn from crystal roots. It should shock your body," Amir smiled. "Maybe my body is stubborn." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Some aliens clapped him on the back, amazed at his calm nature. Others whispered about what kind of species humans must be to endure such things. Sierra finally found the strength to step forward. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You could have been hurt. You do not even know what is in these dishes." Amir looked at her kindly. "Because I was hungry, and because I do not like to refuse a challenge. Back on Earth, if food was difficult, we found a way to eat it. We adapted. That is how we survived. Every bite teaches me something." The word spread quickly among the crowd. Adapt, survive. These were values that every species respected, but rarely did anyone demonstrate it so boldly. A tall alien with scales across his arms leaned closer. "Human, what else can you survive? Could you drink the storm brew of my people?" Another, with glowing eyes, added, "Could you eat the frost fruit of the polar worlds?" Amir laughed. "One at a time. My stomach is strong, but it still needs space." The crowd roared with amusement. The atmosphere was no longer just curiosity, but admiration. The cafe, once a simple eating place, had become the stage of something extraordinary. Sierra watched with mixed feelings. Part of her was worried. What if Amir pushed too far and harmed himself? Another part of her felt wonder. This was history happening before her eyes. She had never thought she would see a human in person, much less one who turned the impossible into a performance. As the noise settled, Amir placed his fork down and leaned back in his chair. That was very good. But maybe some water now, please. The request sounded normal, yet it made Sira's heart race again. He had eaten 2 plates of food that could flatten warriors and now only wanted water. She hurried to bring him a clear glass filled with mineral water. He drank it slowly, then smiled. Thank you. That was refreshing. Around them, the crowd began to discuss in low voices. Rumors grew like fire. Some claimed humans had special organs. Others believed humans carried hidden energy. A few whispered that humans were reckless, but even they admitted it was impressive. The Valari chef crossed his arms, still unsatisfied. I will not believe this unless you can handle the sun spice. That is our strongest dish. It burns like the heart of a star, the crowd gasped. No outsider had ever tasted the sun spice. Even Valari themselves ate it in small amounts with careful preparation. Sira's eyes widened in alarm. You cannot give him that. It is too much, but Amir only smiled calmly. If you prepare it, I will try. Sira nearly fainted again. She rushed forward. No, you cannot. You have proven enough already. Why risk your life for more? Amir looked at her and spoke softly. Because this is not just about me. Everyone here is watching. They see a human for the first time. If I walk away now, they will remember fear. If I continue, they will remember strength. And I want them to remember the best of us. The words silenced her. She could not argue with that. She stepped back, her hands trembling. The chef returned to the kitchen, muttering to himself. Flames rose in the pots, strange smells filled the air, and the entire cafe held its breath. Everyone knew what was coming. Meanwhile, Amir sat quietly, breathing steadily, his hands relaxed on the table. He did not look nervous. He looked ready. Sira watched him and realized she had never met anyone like him. Humans were said to be small, fragile, and untested in the wide galaxy. Yet here was one who made even the bravest aliens doubt themselves. After long minutes, the chef returned carrying a dish that glowed like molten gold. Sparks danced on its surface, and the air shimmered around it with heat. He placed it in front of Amir with a grim nod. This is the sun spice, eat if you dare. The crowd leaned forward. Every eye was locked on the human. Amir picked up his fork. He smiled at Sira as if to reassure her. Then he lifted a glowing piece of the dish to his mouth. Sira's heart stopped. The cafe fell silent. The moment hung heavy in the air, every sound swallowed by anticipation. Amir took the bite. The first bite of the sun spice burned like fire in Amir's mouth. His tongue felt as if sparks were dancing on it, and his throat carried heat like molten metal. For a heartbeat, he thought his body might give up. His eyes watered, his chest tightened, but he kept chewing. Slowly, carefully, he swallowed. The dish left behind a trail of fire, yet it was not unbearable. He sat back, exhaled, and smiled. The cafe shook with noise. Some shouted in disbelief, some cheered, and some simply stared in silence. Sira covered her mouth with both hands, her heart racing. She had thought the sun spice would be the end of him, but instead he looked calm. His face glistened with sweat, but his eyes were bright. It is strong, Amir admitted, but it is good. The crowd erupted again. Chairs scraped, tails thumped, wings fluttered. Aliens of every kind shouted words of astonishment. Some recorded the moment on their devices, capturing proof that a human had eaten what none of them thought possible. The Valari chef's jaw tightened. He had spent his life mastering these dishes, building a reputation for impossible flavors. Yet this human ate them as if they were only a challenge to be overcome. The chef could not decide if he was angry, impressed, or afraid. Sira stumbled forward, grabbing the edge of Amir's table. Why do you keep doing this? Are you trying to make everyone faint? Are you trying to destroy yourself? Amir laughed softly. No, I'm only trying to show that humans are not weak. Everyone here seems to believe that we cannot handle the galaxy. But I want them to see the truth. We may not be the strongest, but we do not give up easily. His words reached the ears of many in the crowd. Some nodded slowly, beginning to see humans in a new light. Others still doubted, but none could ignore what they had witnessed. The sun spice plate was half finished now. Amir took another bite, his hands steady. His throat burned again, but each swallow grew easier. His body was adjusting. He felt the fire dull slightly as his system adapted. That was the human way, adapt or fall. Suddenly, a group of tall aliens pushed their way through the crowd. They wore heavy robes of dark red, their scaled faces marked with black lines. They were traders from the Thark. a warrior race known for pride and strength. They had been watching quietly from the corner, but now they stepped forward. One of them pointed a claw at Amir. You eat food like a show, but strength is not in food. Strength is in battle, in fire, in storms. Can a human survive what we survive? The crowd hushed at once. The tension thickened. The Thark were respected but feared. Their words were not idle. When they spoke of challenges, it was never a joke. Amir looked at them calmly. Maybe I can. Maybe I cannot. But I will not refuse to try. Gasps rose from the audience. Sira shook her head in disbelief. You cannot keep accepting every test. You will push yourself too far. Amir smiled gently. That is the difference between humans and others. We push. That is how we grow. The Thark leader narrowed his eyes. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small container. Inside was a strange liquid glowing faintly with red light. He placed it on the table with a thud. This is fire brew, the Thark said. It is made from the heart of a storm crystal mixed with molten herbs. No outsider has ever swallowed it. It burns inside like lightning, the crowd murmured in shock. Even among the Thark, fire brew was rare and dangerous. It was said to scar the throat and leave the chest aching for hours. Sira's face went pale. No, this is madness. He cannot drink that. But Amir reached out and lifted the container. He sniffed it and the sharp smell stung his nose. His eyes watered instantly, yet he only chuckled. Smells strong. He raised it in a small toast to the crowd, then tipped it back and drank. The liquid struck his throat like lightning. For a moment, his vision blurred, his chest locked, and he thought his body might fall apart. But he forced himself to breathe, to swallow, to endure. Heat spread through him, not just in his mouth, but in his chest, his arms, his very bones. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for him to collapse. Amir set the container down slowly. His hand trembled, his lips burned, but he managed a small grin. Not the worst drink I ever had. The cafe exploded with noise louder than ever before. Some aliens clapped, others shouted, and the Thark themselves stepped back, stunned. They had expected him to fall gasping, yet he stood firm. Sira pressed her hand to her chest, afraid her heart would break from the pressure of watching. She could not believe it. She could not understand how he kept standing. Yet when she looked at Amir's face, she saw calm determination. He was not doing this for pride alone. He was doing it to prove something deeper. The Thark leader bowed slightly, a rare gesture of respect. Human, you are reckless, but you are strong. Perhaps too strong. Amir nodded in return. Not too strong, just stubborn. The crowd laughed again. The tension softened, replaced with admiration. As the excitement spread, Sira leaned close to Amir. Her voice shook. Why do you risk so much for strangers you do not even know? Amir looked at her gently. Because we humans want to belong. Out here among the stars, everyone wonders if we are weak or useless. If I can show even one reason why we matter, then it is worth the risk. Sira could not find words. She stared at him, her eyes wide. For the first time she saw humans not as fragile newcomers, but as something else. Something resilient. Something different. The rest of the night the cafe buzzed like a festival. Stories spread from table to table, from mouth to mouth. Some spoke of the human who ate the flame dish, some of the sun spice, some of the fire brew. Each tale grew larger, and Amir's calm face became a legend already forming. But the night was not finished. The Valari chef still looked unsettled. He whispered to others in the kitchen, preparing something beyond food or drink. He wanted to test not just the human's body, but his very spirit. And so, while Amir smiled and the crowd celebrated, a new challenge was quietly being born in the back room. The celebration inside the cafe grew louder with every passing moment. The air was thick with excitement, voices mixing into one long hum of wonder. Amir sat at the center of it all, still calm, though sweat glistened on his forehead. His body burned from the fire brew, his chest heavy with heat, but he kept his smile. Around him, aliens of many species cheered, debated, and argued about what humans really were. But in the kitchen, the Valari chef was not smiling. His pride was burning hotter than his stoves. He had spent his life proving Valari cuisine was unmatched in its strength and complexity. Yet a human, a stranger from a young species, had walked in and turned his greatest dishes into a stage act. The chef slammed his hands down on the counter. This cannot be. If he can eat like this, then we must see his true limits. We must test his spirit, not just his stomach. His assistants looked nervous, but none dared to question him. They began preparing something rarely spoken of. A dish not on the menu, a creation known as the heart ember. It was not food meant to please. It was food meant to challenge even the bravest Valari. A mistake in eating it could cause hours of pain, yet to those who endured it brought visions and strength. Meanwhile, Sira tried to calm herself at the front of the cafe. She had fainted once already and nearly again when Amir drank the fire brew. Now she felt her heart beat so hard that her chest ached. She moved closer to his table. "You have already proven yourself," she said quietly. "They all respect you now. Please stop before you hurt yourself." Amir looked at her kindly. "I understand your worry, but I think this is not finished. They will not be satisfied until I face their strongest test. If I walk away now, the doubt will return. Sometimes you must go one step further than what seems possible." Sira shook her head. "You are too calm about this. You talk as if pain does not matter." Amir's eyes softened. "Pain always matters, but it does not have to stop us. On Earth, we learned that pain can be endured if something important is at stake. Right now, what is at stake is how they see all humans. That is worth the risk." Sira had no answer. She could only stare at him with wide eyes, wondering how someone so ordinary-looking could carry such determination. The crowd suddenly grew quiet as the chef stepped out of the kitchen. In his hands he carried a dish that glowed like burning coal. The air around it shimmered with heat, and faint sparks danced above its surface. Whispers spread quickly. "The heart ember. He cannot eat that. Even Valari warriors take only a few bites." The chef placed the dish in front of Amir with slow, deliberate care. His voice was heavy with pride and warning. "This is the heart ember. It is not a dish for outsiders. It carries heat that burns the inside and fills the mind with fire. If you eat it, you may not endure." The cafe was silent now, all eyes fixed on the human. Amir looked at the dish, then at the chef. He nodded once. "Thank you." He picked up his fork. Sira felt her knees weaken again. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. "Please, Amir, do not do this." Amir gave her a small smile. "It will be fine. I just need to remember who I am." He lifted a glowing piece of the heart ember to his mouth and took a bite. The moment the food touched his tongue, it felt like molten iron. His whole body shook. His throat screamed with fire as if lightning had passed through it. His vision blurred, his chest pounded, and his ears filled with a roar. For an instant he thought he would collapse. But then he remembered the words he had spoken. Humans adapt. Humans endure. He forced himself to chew, his jaw aching, his breath ragged. Slowly, painfully, he swallowed. The cafe held its breath. Amir's head fell forward. His hands trembled. His skin glistened with sweat. For several long seconds it seemed he would fall. But then he lifted his head, his eyes burning with fierce light. He took another bite. Gasps filled the room. Some aliens shouted in disbelief. Others covered their mouths. The Valari chef stared, unable to move. Amir chewed again, swallowed again, his body shaking but his will unbroken. Each bite sent waves of pain through him, but each bite also grew a little easier. His body was adjusting, his spirit refusing to bend. He kept going slowly until half the dish was gone. At last he set the fork down, breathing hard but still smiling faintly. "It is strong," he said hoarsely, "but it is possible." The cafe erupted with noise like thunder. The sound shook the walls, echoed in the air, and carried out into the halls of the station. The human had done the impossible again. Sira pressed her hands to her face, her eyes wet. She had never felt so many emotions at once. Fear, awe, pride, disbelief. She stumbled forward and leaned close. "You are not just stubborn. You are something else entirely." Amir gave her a tired smile. "I am human. That is enough." The Valari chef, once proud and doubtful, now bowed deeply. "I cannot deny it any longer. You have shown strength not just of body but of spirit. No other could endure what you have endured." The Thark warriors also stepped forward, nodding with respect. "You may not fight with claws or blades, but your courage is worthy of honor." The crowd cheered louder. Stories began spreading instantly, already growing into legend. The human who ate the heart ember. The human who did not fall. Sira looked around, her hands trembling. She realized this night would not be forgotten. For generations to come, people would speak of the human who walked into the Crystal Bloom Cafe and changed how the galaxy saw his kind. Amir leaned back in his chair, exhausted but content. His throat burned, his chest ached, but he felt no regret. He had done what he came to do. And as the cafe celebrated, Sira whispered to herself, "No wonder I fainted. He is not normal at all." Amir sat quietly at the same corner table where his journey in the alien cafe had begun. The glow of the hanging lights above him painted the room in soft colors, and the sweet hum of alien conversations filled the air. He had already become a familiar figure on the station. Some whispered his name with respect, while others spoke of him with disbelief. Sira, the alien waitress who had fainted more than once because of his strange human ability, now stood nearby with a nervous smile. She had grown used to his presence, but her wide eyes still showed wonder whenever she saw him pick up a dish that no one else dared to touch. The cafe was busier than ever. Many species came not only for food, but also for the story of the human who could do the impossible. Traders, scientists, and travelers from far systems entered with curious eyes, hoping to see him prove once more what everyone was saying. For them, Amir was not just a man, but a symbol of mystery. He represented a species no one fully understood. That evening, a new group of visitors entered. They were tall, armored beings from the Varkon race, known for their proud nature and strength. Their heavy steps echoed across the floor as they entered the cafe, and silence followed them like a shadow. Everyone knew they had come for one purpose. They wanted to test the human. Sira glanced at Amir with worry. She had seen this pattern many times. First curiosity, then challenge, then disbelief. Yet Amir never refused. He believed each moment was not about him alone, but about showing what humans stood for. He smiled at her to reassure her, as he always did, then turned his eyes to the Varkon group. The leader of the warriors, a tall figure with silver armor, pointed at Amir. His voice was deep and firm as he spoke. "We have heard of the human who eats what others cannot. We have heard you face the strongest dishes and stood without fear, but words mean little. Tonight you will prove it before us." The crowd held its breath. Everyone leaned closer to hear Amir's reply. He placed his cup down slowly, looked at the warrior, and nodded. His tone was calm but carried strength. "I will not refuse. Bring what you believe no one can handle." The chef of the cafe, already shaking his head, hurried to the kitchen. He knew the Varkon warriors had brought their own recipe, a dish made with fire spices and energy crystals that produced heat and pain inside the body. No outsider had ever finished even one bite. Yet here sat a human who had surprised them all before. Sira followed the chef, whispering in fear. "He cannot keep doing this. He is only human. What if this time it is too much?" But the chef answered with a sigh. "Have you not seen him, Sira? He is not like the others. His body bends but does not break. His spirit grows stronger with every test. If he chooses to try, then perhaps we will see why humans are spoken of as survivors across the stars." When the dish arrived, the air itself seemed to burn. The plate glowed with a red light, and waves of heat rolled across the table. The smell was sharp and bitter, making even the toughest alien cover their nose. The Varkon warriors folded their arms, confident this would end the human's pride. Amir pulled the plate closer. His hands shook slightly, not from fear but from the heat rising against his skin. He glanced at Sira. She shook her head quickly, her voice breaking. "Please, Amir, do not do this. No one can eat that. You have already shown enough." Amir gave her a soft smile. "It is not about proving who I am. It is about showing what my people are. If I stop now, they will believe humans only go halfway. That is not the truth." With that, he took the first bite. Pain spread instantly through his mouth and down his throat. It was as if fire had entered his body. His eyes watered and sweat appeared on his forehead. The cafe gasped in horror, yet Amir kept chewing, then swallowed, forcing the fire deeper into himself. His face twisted in discomfort, but then something strange happened. He adjusted. His breathing slowed. His body began to accept the burning energy. He took another bite, then another. Each time the fire hurt less and his strength returned. The crowd leaned closer, their hearts racing with every motion. The Varkon warriors stared in disbelief, their pride shaken by what they were seeing. Halfway through the dish, Sira fainted once more. This time, 2 customers caught her before she hit the floor. Amir noticed but did not stop. He pushed forward, determined to finish. The last bite went down and the plate was empty. Amir leaned back, wiped the sweat from his face, and smiled. The cafe exploded with cheers. Voices rose from every corner speaking of human resilience. The Varkon leader stepped forward, lowering his head slightly in respect. "Human, you have done what no other could. Your body resisted fire itself, but more than that, your will did not break. I see now why your kind is respected. You are not the strongest or the fastest, but you endure. You adapt. You rise again. Amir nodded, his chest still burning but his spirit calm. That is what it means to be human. We come from a world where every day was a test. We did not survive because life was easy. We survived because we learned to face hardship and keep moving forward. Sira woke moments later, weak but awake, and rushed to his side. Her eyes filled with both worry and admiration. Why do you do this to yourself? You scare me every time, yet every time you prove me wrong. Amir laughed softly, his voice gentle. Because sometimes the universe needs to see what humans are. We may fall, we may hurt, but we do not stop. That is our gift. From that day on, the cafe was no longer just a place for food. It became a place where the story of the human was told again and again. Travelers came not only to see him but also to understand the lesson he gave. Humanity was not great because of power or weapons. Humanity was great because of spirit, because of the refusal to quit even when the odds seemed impossible. Sira never forgot the night she fainted again. She laughed about it later, admitting she could not handle what Amir made look so simple, but deep in her heart she carried a new respect, not only for him but for all humans. She realized that the human story was not one of perfection but of persistence. As Amir sat once more at his corner table, smiling at a fresh plate of food, he knew the tale would spread far beyond this station. Somewhere on some distant world, another alien would hear about the human who ate fire and kept standing, and maybe, just maybe, they would learn something from it too. For in the end, that was the truth of humanity. Not the strongest, not the most advanced, but the species that never gave up. And that truth was enough to make the universe stop, stare, and believe.